It was made very, very clear that all of the attractions there were not for us. They did not belong to us. Those 14 words completely dismantled decades of cultural assumptions about what it was like to be a child inside Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch when Paris Jackson sat down with Alex Cooper on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Most listeners expected another run-of-the-mill celebrity interview where the host asks comfortable questions about living inside a literal fairy tale kingdom. For over 20 years, the public narrative around Prince, Paris, and B.G. Jackson was built on a very specific visual. Children running wild through a multi-million-dollar private amusement park, eating unlimited cotton candy, riding Ferris wheels whenever they felt like it, and living in an endlessly permissive fantasy world detached from reality instead. Paris set the record straight with absolute clarity. First of all, she corrected the fundamental myth right out of the gate. She did not spend her entire childhood at Neverland. She was only there for the first few years of her life. Second, and far more surprising to anyone listening, the private zoo, the amusement rides, the movie theater, and the train station were not treated as personal toys for the Jackson siblings. Michael Jackson made it explicitly clear to his children that those attractions belonged to visiting groups of underprivileged and terminally ill kids who could not afford or manage a trip to commercial theme parks like Disneyland. Paris explained that her actual daily routine inside Neverland looked remarkably ordinary, if not strikingly rigid. She woke up, walked down the hall to a designated classroom, and completed her homeschool lessons with private tutors. She had daily chores, access to television, and movies was strictly capped. They were only allowed to watch screens if they were studying cinema technique with the audio turned completely off, or as a rare reward on weekends after finishing all homework and household responsibilities. If they were good during the week, they might get permission to visit the animals or ride a coaster on Saturday. That exact same boundary followed them wherever they moved later in life, whether hotel hopping in Las Vegas or living in Virginia. If you did your homework, you got to go to Circus or Chuck E. Cheese on the weekend. As Paris herself joked during the interview, if she had been allowed to run free through an amusement park 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, she probably would have grown up to be an intolerable person. The immediate online reaction to this clip was swift, but it split in two distinct directions. On one side, a massive chunk of the internet focused heavily on the interaction between Alex Cooper and Paris Jackson. Viewers quickly picked up on the fact that Cooper appeared to walk into the segment operating under the exact same pop culture stereotype that the general public has held for 2 decades. When Cooper framed the premise around Paris growing up in this magical kingdom, Paris's swift, matter-of-fact correction created a noticeable beat of tension. Social media commentary platforms were instantly flooded with edits analyzing Cooper's interview preparation, contrasting modern digital podcasting styles with traditional long-form journalism. On the other side of the discourse, music fans and pop culture commentary channels began reanalyzing Michael Jackson's parenting style through this new lens. For years, mainstream media framed Michael's child-rearing choices as pure eccentric chaos, focusing almost exclusively on masks in public, extreme privacy measures, and non-traditional schooling. But Paris's account offers a far more nuanced picture. It reveals a father who was acutely aware of the catastrophic potential of extreme privilege and worked obsessively to instill boundaries, work ethic, and a sense of earning rewards in an environment where literally anything money could buy was within arm's reach. Why did this brief podcast moment ignite such a massive conversation across platforms like TikTok, X, and YouTube over the last 72 hours? Because it highlights a massive cultural shift in how we process celebrity memoirs and media narratives. For decades, the media constructed its own version of the Jackson family history, one driven largely by sensationalism, tabloid headlines, and external speculation. We are now living in an era where the children of the most famous people on earth are adults with their own direct platforms, capable of speaking without PR filters or network television editing. When an interviewee calmly dismantles a 30-year-old urban legend in under 2 minutes, it forces the audience to confront how much of modern celebrity lore is built on assumption rather than primary account. This moment also speaks directly to current discussions surrounding influencer culture, family vlogging, and wealth projection. Today's digital ecosystem is filled with creators who broadcast hyper-luxurious lifestyles, constantly indulging their children on camera for clicks and engagement. Seeing a direct contrast, with a child of arguably the biggest global superstar in history describes being barred from her own backyard theme park until she finished her homework, strikes a powerful chord with modern audiences. It highlights the sharp divide between performing luxury for an audience and managing the actual psychological reality of extreme wealth behind closed doors. For Paris Jackson herself, this candid conversation continues to solidify her distinct public identity. Rather than leaning into the dramatic legacy or allowing external media to dictate her biography, she consistently approaches her family background with a pragmatic, almost clinical honesty. It protects her credibility as an artist, model, and public figure in her own right, signaling to the industry that she is not interested in playing into sensationalized tropes for engagement. What happens next isn't necessarily a wave of public apology or a sudden rewrite of pop culture history. Rather, it raises a broader question about how media hosts and commentators approach legacy figures moving forward. As more offspring of hyper-famous figures step into the spotlight to tell their own stories, will interviewers continue to lean on old tabloid tropes, or will this prompt a push toward deeper research and less transactional commentary?